Fellas, there are some fights in the UFC that I would just love to see between two fighters, and I think it would be an absolute banger, one of the biggest fights in the UFC, but the only problem is that they're in two completely different weight classes. So I've got a list of some fights in the UFC that I really want to see between two fighters that are in a different weight class. Some of them are title fights, some of them are non-title fights, some of them could actually happen and are probably going to happen soon. So yeah, a list of fighters that are going to be fighting, or that should fight each other in different weight classes. Let me know if I've missed any matchups out, because I'm pretty sure this video could go on forever. Starting off with the first matchup, the first fight I've gone with is Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, 2 in MMA. Technically, it's like, what, the 5th fight now, but 2 in MMA in the light heavyweight division. So this fight, I think a lot of people want to see this. I mean, this is one of the biggest fights in the UFC. You've got Israel Adesanya, one of the biggest stars, and Alex Pereira, who, after that knockout at UFC 300, undoubtedly one of the biggest stars in the UFC. I really want to see this fight. I think this is a massive, massive fight. And the rivalry's still going. I thought after UFC 287, when Adesanya knocked out Pereira, the rivalry would be done. They've settled it, but no, they've still got a rivalry going on online. They're still trash-talking, especially from Adesanya's side. So they've both got a rivalry that they need to settle. And technically, and I know Alex Pereira's winning the whole rivalry thing because it's 3-1, but technically in MMA alone, they're 1-1. So it's a chance for the winner of this next fight in the light heavyweight division to settle the score in MMA. If Pereira wins, I mean, he's 4-1. And if Adesanya wins, technically he can go with the narrative that he's 2-1 in MMA rather than just being 3-1. So yeah, they've got a rivalry that I think they need to settle, and it would be their biggest fight so far. The first fight and the second fight in the UFC were big, but I think the third fight between two of them for the light heavyweight belt would be massive. Obviously, we can't see it at middleweight anymore because, first of all, it won't be for a belt, and second of all, there's no way that Alex Pereira is ever making middleweight ever again. So yeah, I hope we see this matchup. Maybe if Adesanya gets a win and then moves up to the light heavyweight division for the belt, we can see this matchup. And it's a big fight for both of them. If Adesanya can go out there and beat Alex Pereira again, first of all, he's won against a guy that... He's won the light heavyweight belt, first of all. He's been wanting to get the light heavyweight belt for a while, so he's got the light heavyweight belt, and he's settled the score in MMA. And if Alex Pereira can win this fight, he's just won a fight against a guy that's just knocked him out. All the Adesanya fans don't get the last laugh, and Alex Pereira would be 4-1 and 2-1 in MMA, so he's winning in every single aspect of it. So it's a big fight. I hope we see this fight. Still one of the biggest striking matchups in the UFC. And yeah, the light heavyweight division, Pereira versus Adesanya 2. I really want to see this matchup, and I hope at least one day we get to see this matchup one final time. The next fight we've got is Islam Makhachev versus Leon Edwards. This is a fight that could happen. If Makhachev keeps getting defenses and Leon doesn't lose the belt, I really do think we're going to see this matchup. It was supposed to be for UFC 300, but obviously they couldn't make the fight. Yeah, this fight is a massive fight because Islam Makhachev in the UFC, I made a video about this the other day, he looks pretty much unbeatable. There's not one fighter in the lightweight division or whatever that I can say beats Islam Makhachev. He looks unbeatable, but in my opinion, Leon Edwards is the most difficult fight in the UFC for Islam Makhachev, at least a realistic fight. Obviously, there's more difficult fights, but if we're talking about realistic fights, Leon Edwards, he's the most difficult fight for Islam Makhachev. He's well-rounded. He's been facing grappler after grappler. And the main thing is Leon Edwards is massive. He's a big welterweight. It's not Volkanovski anymore. Leon Edwards is a massive welterweight, and he's a big, big guy for Islam Makhachev, and it's not going to be easy for him. But yeah, if Islam Makhachev can go out there and beat Leon Edwards, that means Islam Makhachev would have beaten champion after champion. He's beaten the featherweight champion in Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, now it's Topuria. He would have beaten the lightweight champion in Charles Oliveira. And now he's gone out there and beaten the welterweight champion in Leon Edwards. He's beaten champion after champion in the UFC, so, or champion after champion after champion. He's done it 3 times, so big statement-making performance from Makhachev if he can beat a guy like Leon Edwards, and he's going to get a belt in a different weight class, which automatically would boost him in the greatest of all time list. And if Leon Edwards is able to beat Islam Makhachev, he's beaten one of the biggest stars in the UFC. It's a very, very credible defense, and he's beaten the guy that everyone says is unbeatable. This fight would be massive for a pay-per-view main event. It's one of the few super fights that we can actually make in the UFC between two champions, and like I said, if Makhachev can get 2 or 3 more defenses against lightweights, I don't mind seeing this matchup. It's a difficult fight for both of them. I'd probably lean towards Leon Edwards winning this matchup, but Makhachev looks practically unbeatable, so it's hard to say. But Makhachev versus Edwards, I really hope we see this fight. The next fight, another fight that could actually happen, Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor. Now, both of them, Max Holloway's just beaten Justin Gaethje. He's one of the biggest stars in the UFC, and Conor McGregor's got a fight booked with Michael Chandler. If Conor McGregor can get past Michael Chandler, which by the way is an upset in itself, Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor would be one of the biggest fights, if not the biggest fight you can possibly make in the UFC right now. Max Holloway, after UFC 300, after that performance against Justin Gaethje, he is now the human highlight reel rather than Gaethje, and he is one of the biggest stars in the UFC. And then obviously I don't have to tell you why Conor McGregor is one of the biggest stars. This would sell so much pay-per-views and would be a massive pay-per-view main event. I think Conor McGregor would be down as well, because unless they're going to be really gifting to Conor McGregor, I don't think he's going to get a title shot if he beats Michael Chandler, and it is at 170. I don't care if this fight's at 155 or 170, wherever it ends up, but McGregor would 100% be down to fight Holloway for the BMF belt. I mean, he's fought Holloway before and won, so it's a chance for him to get another fight with him against a massive star in the UFC that would sell pay-per-views, and I think his confidence would be high if he can get past Michael Chandler. For the BMF belt as well, I think Conor McGregor would like that fight, and Holloway, obviously, he's not going to reject the fight with Conor McGregor, no one would. Holloway looks insane right now, and if McGregor can get past Michael Chandler, I want to see this fight. It is a super fight. It's more than a super fight. It's the biggest fight you can possibly make in the UFC right now. So, Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor. Hopefully, we end up seeing this matchup. The next fight is Conor McGregor's opponent, Michael Chandler versus Josh Emmett. Now, I haven't really heard anyone talk about this matchup, but I've just been thinking about this matchup theoretically. It's probably never going to happen, but Michael Chandler versus Josh Emmett would be such a fun fight. I mean, both of these guys are some of the most exciting fighters, if not the most exciting fighters in their weight class, and this is assuming that Josh Emmett could move up to the lightweight division, which he could definitely do. It's either going to be a guaranteed knockout or a bloody war. It's either going to be Michael Chandler getting slept, Josh Emmett getting slept, or it's going to probably not go to a decision, but even if it does go to a decision, assuming it's a 3-rounder, it's going to be bloody. They're going to be taking years off each other's life. This is going to be an absolute war between two fighters, and it's a fresh matchup for Michael Chandler. We're getting to see Chandler against someone else rather than the normal Charles Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier, and obviously now McGregor. So regardless of if he beats McGregor or loses to McGregor, Chandler versus Josh Emmett is a huge fight. It's a dangerous fight. It's an extremely fun matchup, and it's between two extremely hard hitters who come to bang every single time. There's no way that this is boring. No matter the card you stick it on, it's going to be either knockout of the night or fight of the night. So Michael Chandler versus Josh Emmett. I know it's not a fight that's talked about, and it's probably the most unrealistic fight on this card, but I really want to see this matchup. The next fight we've got is Alex Pereira against either Ciryl Gane or Tom Aspinall. There's been a lot of talks of Alex Pereira moving up to the heavyweight division. A lot of people think that should be his next move. And I've got two different matchups, Ciryl Gane and Tom Aspinall. Starting off with Ciryl Gane. Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane. I mean, this is a favourable matchup for both of them. Pereira's getting a chance to fight in a completely different weight class, and it's in a favourable matchup. There's no grappling threat from Ciryl Gane. And just like Ciryl Gane's a striker who can't grapple. There's no grappling threat from Alex Pereira. This is going to be one of the most interesting striking matchups you can possibly make in the UFC. It's extremely high-level striking. Both of them have looked pretty flawless in the UFC on the feet, I guess, besides the time Gane got caught and Pereira got knocked out. But apart from that, they've looked pretty flawless. Again, neither of them have to face a grappler. They don't have to worry about getting taken down. And it's a big fight for both of them. If Ciryl Gane can win against Alex Pereira, that's going to push him closer to the heavyweight belt. I know Pereira's not actually a heavyweight right now, but it's a big fight. And he gets to be a big star in the UFC and become an even bigger star himself. And if Pereira can beat Ciryl Gane, he gets a win against a fighter in a third weight class. And potentially this sets up a fight with Tom Aspinall. Or it just cures time and he gets a free win against a heavyweight and proves that he's one of the greatest. So Pereira versus Gane, that's a big fight. And then the next fight, slightly more risky for Alex Pereira, but it's Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall. This would be a super fight. You've got two big stars, two champions in the UFC, the People's Heavyweight Champion versus the Light Heavyweight Champion, two of the most liked fighters in the UFC, Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall. Absolute super fight. If Tom Aspinall can beat Alex Pereira, he's beaten one of the biggest stars in the UFC, and undoubtedly Tom Aspinall himself would become a massive star from this. He doesn't have to get a defense against no offense, but a guy like Blades, who isn't really that big of a star, or, another heavyweight that hasn't really got that much star power. If he can beat Alex Pereira, that boosts Tom Aspinall's star power astronomically, and he's just shut down one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC in Alex Pereira. And if Alex Pereira can beat Tom Aspinall, first of all, that's a stylistic nightmare for him, but if he can actually beat Tom Aspinall, he's just won a belt in a third weight class, the only fighter to win a belt in 3 different weight classes, obviously not simultaneously, and he enters the GOAT discussion. If Pereira can beat Aspinall, I don't mind Alex Pereira being in the top 10 list of the greatest of all time, even though he hasn't got this long list of defenses. What he's accomplished in a short amount of time would be insane. So that's the fight I want to see, Pereira versus Tom Aspinall, even though I'm not sure how favourable it is for Pereira. And then the next fight, Jailton Almeida versus Vitor Patrino. Again, another fight that's probably unrealistic, but I actually really like this matchup. Vitor Patrino's just about entering the rankings of the light heavyweight division, and he's matched up against Anthony Smith at UFC 301, which I think is going to demolish him. He's undefeated as well. And then obviously Jailton Almeida, known for being one of the best wrestlers and the best grapplers in the heavyweight division, but he's coming off a loss to Curtis Blades. I think Jailton Almeida could make 205, and if he did make 205, he would be massive. It's kind of like Pereira moving down to middleweight. Almeida, he's never really weighed in too big as a heavyweight, so I don't think he'd struggle too much making 205, and he wouldn't have to face these huge grueling heavyweights anymore. He'd have to face light heavyweights. Yeah, this is just going to be two dominant grapplers going at it. Patrino and Almeida are two very, very dominant grapplers. They've never ever lost when it comes to grappling in the UFC. They're just that good, and to see two grapplers at the highest level go at it, this would be huge in Brazil. Like a Brazilian Fight Night main event, Almeida versus Patrino would be huge. You've got the size and strength advantage of Jailton Almeida, who's coming down from the heavyweight division, which would give him an advantage. And then for Vitor Patrino, he's got the striking advantage. I'd say he's a much better striker than Jailton Almeida. So it's also a matchup that we get to see Jailton Almeida in, where it's not just going to be him going for the takedown and absolutely dominating him with grappling, because usually that's what we see with Almeida. We're expecting him to take the opponents down, and it's not really him on the feet. Whereas when he faces a grappler as dangerous as Patrino, then we get to see Almeida and see how he does on the feet and see if he still goes for the constant takedowns. That's a fun fight for me. But yeah, those are some matchups in the UFC that I really want to see between two fighters in a completely different weight class. Let me know if I should have added anyone else to the list and if you agree with this list. But yeah, thank you for watching.